Yes, you're good now.
Okay, go ahead.
We're good, Rob.
Okay, go ahead, Chair. Okay, so we'll call this meeting to order. It's a, as you know, we have been notified that the ZBA is hearing a petition which requires us to give a referral. So I'm going to ask Sharon, since she's already submitted a staff report, to go over her staff report with us to fill us in, and then we will open it up for discussion and questions, and we'll conclude by making a motion to what we're going to do is we're going to make a motion to recommend to the full commission whether or not we should give a positive or a negative recommendation for this. We don't make that recommendation. The zoning commission will make the recommendation. We're just going to do some of the initial legwork for that.
Great, thank you. Again, for the record, Sharon Calitro, I'm the planning director, and I did prepare a report dated June 16th, which I hope you all have a copy of. So the applicant has applied for several variances to the Zoning Board of Appeals. One of them is a use variance. And in accordance with our regulations in section 11B4A, when the ZBA is presented with a use variance petition, it must refer it out to both the Zoning Commission and the Planning Commission for a review and report. So the petition is to is a use variance to allow automotive sales and service, which is basically an automotive dealership with a repair service on a lot in the Central Business District, CBD district. I have to go on the record, I did get the public hearing date wrong. It is July 28th and not August 9th. That's actually a zoning commission meeting. So I apologize for that. That's a typo. So in addition to that use variance, which affects one other section of the regulations, there are two other variances that they have applied for, and I'll go through them during the course of the memo. So the property is located at 23 to 27 Rose Street. It's 0.75 acres in size. It's on the north side of Rose Street, basically across from one of the buildings at Kennedy Flats. The applicants also happen to own a property right next to this property with an address at 33 to 37 Rose Street. So in addition to being located in the Central Business District zone, it's also the Rose Street parcel for the use variance is located in the DRZ zone, which is our downtown revitalization overlay zone. The automobile sales and repair is not allowed in the CBD zone, hence the request for a variance. The site is currently being used for the sale of building products, which was allowed by variance in 1976, and then a second variance to expand a building for that use in 1978. So those are pre-existing legal non-conforming uses. The site also happens to be adjacent to the AE zone on the flood insurance rate maps, which is because it's right adjacent to the Still River. So I felt it was important to give you a little history, zoning history on the site. So the next couple of paragraphs deal with that. So because there's some mention of it in the reasons for the hardship that were presented by the applicant. So let's just clarify things for the record. The site was used for automobile repair in 1966 because a certificate of location approval was issued by the ZBA. And at that point, they were issuing the certificate of location approvals. And it was in the CBD zone, and it was a permitted use. It was a use that was allowed, subject to actually getting a certificate of location approval. Then in 1970, the ZBA granted a variance to allow for a non-conforming use. So it changed from a use that was allowed in the zone to a use that was not allowed in the zone, which was, as our records indicate, kind of the refinishing of business equipment, typewriters and things like that. And the ZBA at the time found that that was no more objectionable than the repairer's use. So fine, they issued that in 1970. In 1973, it went back again so they gave up the non-conforming use. It went to a conforming use. And the ZBA again issued a location approval for used car sales and general repair. Again, still in 1973, those used car and general repair was allowed in the CBD zone. So they went from, conforming, non-conforming, back to conforming use. And then in 1976, the owner applied for the variance for the sale of building products, which wasn't a use that was allowed in the CBD zone. And they were allowed to expand a building by issuance of a variance in 78. And that's what's continued to, the properties has continued to be used for. In 2007, some of you may recall, because you were on the commissions, we went through with Dennis kind of a wholesale relooking at all the zoning districts, and we deleted uses that we didn't think were appropriate. We moved things from permitted to special exception and vice versa, and through every residential, commercial, industrial zoning district. At that time in 2007, the automobile sales and repair use, which was in the central business district at that time, was removed. And Director Elpern, in his testimony before the commission, said, again, as I just indicated, the purpose of the amendments is to update the regulations affecting commercial zoning districts to ensure that each district fulfills a distinctive role in guiding commercial development in appropriate parts of the city by, one, limiting uses that are consistent with the purpose of the district, protecting adjacent properties from land use conflicts, limiting traffic congestion, and protecting environmentally sensitive resources, and improving site design and aesthetics. And there were some amendments. Those amendments, also included some prohibitions on off-street parking and the storage and display in the front yard setback. In this case, since we're still in the CBD zone, the CBD zone has no front yard setback, which means that if this were to be approved by the zoning board of appeals, they could park automobiles right in the front yard because there basically is no front yard setback. And I think that, again, I've mentioned that was one of the reasons why there were some changes made to the zone back in 2007. And another reason why that use was deleted, because we didn't want cars for sale parked in the CBD zone up and down Main Street and on those little feeder streets. We were trying to do, to incentivize other uses. As well, in May of 2019, and I'm bringing this up because it was brought up in the petition or the petitioner's application, a copy of it, the previous owner of the site had requested from the zoning enforcement officer a confirmation of the zoning district. So what district is it in? And Sean issued that letter and indicated that the sale, what the property was being used for, again, for the last variance that was issued for the sale of building products, was legal non-conforming. So legal non-conforming use of the property. That letter was issued a month before this applicant closed on the property. The deeds reflect the dates. Therefore, the owner who sold the property knew the property was in the CBD zone, because that's what Sean's letter said, and he is the interpreter of the zoning regulations, having done all the research. And he should, and the applicant should have known or been made, aware that that's what the zone was. You can't claim, regardless of whether they looked at a vision appraisal card, the official zone is on the official zoning map. We all know through the years, the cards don't have the right zones on them. Everybody is told you must look at the official zoning map to confirm the zoning on a site. It can't go by the vision appraisal card. That's not a hardship. And they also had a letter from the zoning enforcement officer that said you're not in the CG20 zone like they claimed they thought it was, that you were in the central business district. So in terms of the application, and I just brought up, and I know it's nitpicky, but this is what we have to do. So, they didn't indicate on the application that previous variances were issued on the application form. They talked about it generally, but they really didn't go through exactly what I've indicated in that first paragraph, exactly what happened in what year, because I think that's a better picture. They indicated no as to whether the property was located near wetlands or water course, and it's right next to the Still River, so how could the answer be no? Because they didn't submit any grading plans or anything associated with utility plans on the site, even though they claim we're just making interior renovations, we have no idea what are they doing relative to site improvements, because that's important as it relates to this variance that they're asking for from the floodplain regulations. So again, and you have a copy of it in the petition, the reasons why. It implies that the grant, it kind of implies that there were variances granted for the used car sales. And that is not the case. At the time when used car sales and repair were operated on that site, that was allowed in the zone. So the variances were granted for other things. So again, the location approvals were what was issued in 66 and 73. At the time, they were allowed, and notwithstanding the previous location approvals, the later variance was issued for the sale of building products. Again, today, automobile sales and repair is not allowed in the CBD zone because the city decided it wasn't an appropriate use for that zone, right, back in 2007. And then I just went into at the bottom of page 2, as you know, granting of a use variance extends the right for a property owner to use a property for that is not for a use that's not extended to other people in the zone. And the ZBA shouldn't be issuing use variances for a use which is inconsistent with the general purpose and intent of the regulations or impairs the integrity of the comprehensive plan. So it's come straight out of Fuller. One of the other variances they're requesting is to change one non-conforming use, again, remember the sale of building supplies, to another non-conforming use, automobile sales and repair. So they're asking for a variance to go from one non-conforming to another, which our regulation says you can't do. They want to vary that. And they also, as I indicated previously, want a variance from the floodplain regulations, from the section that requires that when you're in that zone, that AE zone that I mentioned, the planning commission who issues the floodplain regulations has to make a finding that all the required principal and fire exits shall have access to ground or structure leading to ground having continuous elevation above the 100-year flood. And the reason why that's important is because if we're inundated with water and there's a flood, people have to be able to get out, they have to get to higher ground. I mean, that's as simple as. So there are 13 other parcels on Rose Street that are in the same position as this parcel relative to that requirement. So I don't know how the ZBA could find that this regulation just affects this property. It doesn't. That is a significant variance in terms of potential safety impacts, not just for people working on the site, but what if there's an oil spill and something leaks out of the car, and before you know it, you got, it's just drains right into the Still River. I mean, they're in the most highly regulated section of the floodplain, I guess, other than the floodway. But they're adjacent to the Still River. Again, section 9 of the regs, the intent of the regs is to allow nonconformities, which is their sale of building products, to continue. We recognize the right, but we're trying to encourage lots, the use of lots and structures to be brought in conformity with the regs, not to change to another non-conforming use. The goal is you're legal, you can continue there, operate under your existing variance, but if you're going to change, you really should be changing to a conforming use, not another non-conforming use. Okay, in terms of, and then I went on to explain some things relative to what Fuller has said. Again, you've all read the memo. In terms of the plan of conservation and development, the site is identified as being in the central business district. That category includes a wide range of retail sales, medical offices, things like that. And it's in the downtown revitalization overlay zone. And given that the focus on the downtown and the purpose and intent of the CBD zone as it was amended, and the DRZ to incentivize, you know, the redevelopment. It's really questionable whether, like, do automobile sales really and repair, does that help our business? Does it help downtown? And we don't feel it does. They're allowed in CG20 zones. They're allowed in other zones. There's plenty of opportunity to do automobile sales and repair. We should save downtown pieces for uses that are more appropriate. And as well, as you all know, sometimes automobile sales and repair can kind of, you know, the operations, if they're not carefully monitored, can spill over onto the roadway. They offload vehicles, they move cars around when they're being repaired. Cars have no, you know, sometimes cars are parked over the sidewalks and things like that because they're just trying to move, they're busy. I think there's plenty of examples of that throughout the city. So we had concerns about that. And then I went on, and many of you have seen kind of sort of the same thing, is the ZBA, as you know, and it's more for the ZBA than for you guys, but they're the arbiter of the zoning regulations. They have the power by the state to vary the strict letter of the zoning regulations when it's appropriate and within prescribed limits and under discretion. They can't be a mini zoning commission. The zoning commission decides what uses are appropriate in what zones. And that's your function, not their function. So we need to be really careful about use variances. Again, the fact that building products is allowed there and that's non-conforming, or the fact that the previous automobile sales were allowed on that site, again, allowed because they were permitted in that zone, is not a basis to allow it again. It's not allowed in that zone, period. And again, for the reasons we said above. So basically, in conclusion, we have concerns about it. You can't claim I thought it was in another zone when I bought it. So, so now I want to use it for a use that, would have been allowed in the zone I thought it was in when you didn't really do your homework. So I can't claim that as a reason. And they have to obviously prove hardship to the zoning, the ZBA. I'm not sure that automobile sales and repair comply with our POCD or those zoning districts for the reasons, again, for the purpose and intent reasons stated in the zoning regulations. We have serious concerns about some flooding issues should that site get flooded. And for all of those reasons, we don't recommend positive referral for this. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I know it's a lot, but there is a history there. It doesn't really come across if you just read their zoning Board of Appeals application. So you kind of sort of have to dig around and find out exactly what happened when, because I think that's important. So with that, I will answer any questions.
Thank you, Sharon. Ricky, go ahead.
Thanks. Sharon, you mentioned 23-27 Rose Street. Is that owned by the applicant or owned by the seller of the property?
The 25 Rose Street LLC purchased the property in June of 2019. So the address is 2327 Rose Street. That's the address of the property. The petitioner is an LLC.
I think Ricky was actually meaning to ask about 3337.
Oh, 33. I'm sorry.
Oh.
3337 is also
that's
owned
right.
by what?
Right, that's what I want. 3337 is owned right now by the applicant of this.
By 25 Rose Street LLC. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they own the adjacent property.
Yeah, which is the former A1 Auto, if anyone is familiar.
Oh, the inspection center. No?
There is an inspection center there. It was A1 Auto. Remember Bruce and I can't remember what his last name, his son, I'm drawing a blank. I used to have repair work done all the time.
Yeah, but
Okay.
if that was a use that
Yeah,
was
no,
allowed,
it was an allowed use, and I know he sold it to. So, Ricky, did you have a follow-up question with that?
Well, is 33-37, is that the old furniture store?
No, that's the other side.
no.
Okay,
No.
all right.
Yeah. So
The
Okay,
old
so-
furniture store, if you're across the street at like Kennedy Flats looking at the property,
Yep,
the furniture store is to the right,
okay,
heading
Which-
towards Main Street.
yes,
Danbury
Good.
Furniture, yeah.
Which, by
Okay.
the way, is now a youth center.
Yes,
Jericho. That's what Jericho.
Jericho,
Right.
yeah.
yep. Okay, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Angie Milan, you have any questions for Sharon?
No, I pretty well understand.
Okay.
You know, there's no more to discuss. You want my opinion of the deal or you?
Wait,
do you
hold
want?
on a second on the opinion.
Yeah.
So Sharon, one quick question for you. So 3337, I know right now that's a used car sales, and that which is an allowed use because it's been there. It was pre-existing back when it was A1 Auto. They had the car sales use, and so now right now, since 33 through 37 is now owned by the same property owner as 2327. If they were to join the lots together, would the use from 3337 spill over to 23 to 27? In other words, because they can sell cars on the 3337 and they join the lots together, would that extend that non-conforming use to 23?
You can't extend you can't extend a non-conforming, you can't expand a non-conforming use, and that's what that would be doing.
Okay,
So there's a the zoning, they'd have to apply for a variance to do that, and then, yeah, here we go
Okay.
again, right?
Yeah.
And the
I
law
was-
on non-conformities on the state law is you can't expand them, so you know,
Oh, yeah, no.
sometimes it happens, but right,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
But again, they were allowed to continue if they didn't do anything to the property, you could sell them, whatever, as long as you're not proposing to change it in any way. And the same is with respect to any substantial improvement relative to the floodplain stuff, like it wouldn't kick in the requirement of ground leading to ground unless you were doing some substantial improvement. And that is actually clearly defined in the zoning regs, like what do you mean by substantial improvement? So they would be allowed to continue, right? But they couldn't merge. They could merge it, but they couldn't do it on that lot, I guess. We wouldn't
Okay.
allow it.
Yeah, I wanted clarification on that. And
Yeah,
then the
good question.
my other question would be, would the storage of vehicles, is that an allowed use in the CBD zone?
No, because it was automobile. It used to be, I don't have the old red with me, but it was worded the same way as, let's just go to the zoning. Let's just go to CG20 zone, which is 5. Give me 1 second. They're usually all worded the same way. And it usually says sale, rental, and or repair of automobiles, automobile trailers, trucks, house trailers, motorcycles, boats, and farm equipment.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of how the dealers sometimes they extend their lot by storing the cars on a second lot, which is a little bit not part of their showroom lot, but
Yeah, it happens on Star for.
that's exactly what I was thinking. But
they get approval like for a parking facility and things like that. Like I
Right.
don't believe we have a use that just says storage of automobiles. They get a different site plan approval.
Okay.
For a use that's a permitted use in the zone.
Right. Would that type of a parking use or something be permitted? I'm just trying to think about their hardship claim and wondering if that parking use would be available. Is that available? Is that allowed in the zone?
In the CBD,
CBD?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And there is some history about, questions about what zone is it in, and the bottom line is it was answered in 2019.
Yeah.
The zoning enforcement, you knew before you bought a property, they can't claim you thought it was in CG20 and this was okay. You bought a property and you intended, I'm not going to hazard a guess on what they intended, but I assume they intended to want to do this here, and it isn't allowed. So now the request is, go let me in by variance. And then, so what hardship is that? There's no hardship there.
Okay.
The property owner knew the zoning enforcement officer issued an informal letter, and no one ever checked the official zoning map. And whether you have the card or not, I mean, you know, the cards, with all due respect to the assessor's office, the cards sometimes reference zoning districts we don't even have anymore. So,
Yeah.
and the zoning regs say the official zoning designation is what shows up on the official zoning map.
Yep.
So,
Milan, you had mentioned earlier you were thinking about expressing your opinion. Did you want to go ahead and do that?
Yeah, in a nutshell, without getting too winded here, this deal to me is not too kosher. It definitely seems like it could be potential detrimental to these citizens, and especially the area in Danbury, with the floodplain, the safety, and the history is on, it's not kosher. So there's nothing else for me to think about. Okay.
Ricky or Angie, any further comments or discussion you two wanted to offer? Go ahead, Rick.
A tag on to what Milan said. I'm just thinking, Sharon, you had mentioned it's really not good for downtown. If I don't want to say it's going to attract the wrong attention, but it's just not something, if we're trying to continue with plan of conservation, if that's what it is, let's just stay with it. I think, there's a lot of traffic for used cars. And I don't think it fits. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, guys. If I were to offer up a motion, which as chair of a subcommittee, I can't, but if I were to offer up a motion, I would think of something along the lines of a negative recommendation for the reasons that it's incompatible with the uses allowed in the zone and it's inconsistent with the plan of conservation and development, as well as because with the fact that the zoning enforcement officer confirmed the proper zoning of the property to the property owners prior to or a month prior to closing on the property. So I don't know what you guys are thinking about that, but that's what I would suggest. So I don't know if someone wants to offer that as a motion and then second it.
Well, offers a motion, also,
Okay.
it's right along the lines of I'm thinking here, so.
It sounded like it was consistent with what you're expressing, Milan. I left off, I thought about including something with the health and safety because you mentioned that, but sometimes that's hard to prove. So I thought it might be cleaner just leaving it off. That's why I didn't include it, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. I make that motion.
Okay. So we have a motion made by Milan, seconded by Ricky. Discussion. All those in favor of a negative recommendation for the reasons stated, please signify by saying aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Chairman,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. At the tail end of my memo, I just asked if you would forward this report to the Zoning Board of Appeals, because we don't prepare staff reports for them. So they would have this as the kind of the backup to your report. So if you could just include that in your motion.
Sure.
And send a copy of the staff report.
Yeah, we'll also recommend that the zoning commission forward the staff report to the ZBA, as they are not furnished a copy in advance. Okay. So all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay. Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to
So moved.
adjourn.
Made by Milan, seconded by Ricky. All those discussion. All those in favor, say we're saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the